Have your beautiful green onion plants suddenly started turning yellow? One day they look healthy, and the next, the tips are fading, the leaves are wilting, and you're wondering if your entire crop is about to fail. Before you panic, here's the good news: yellow onion leaves don't always mean your onions are doomed. In fact, many of the most common causes can be fixed quickly if you know what to look for. The challenge is that yellow leaves can be a symptom of many different problems. Too much water, not enough water, nutrient deficiencies, pests, diseases, compacted soil, or even natural plant aging can all produce similar-looking symptoms. Treating the wrong problem can actually make things worse. In today's video, you'll learn exactly why onion leaves turn yellow, how to identify the real cause, and what you can do immediately to save your plants and still harvest large, healthy bulbs. Some of these solutions work within just a few days, while others can prevent the problem from returning next season. So make sure you stay until the end, because the final tip is one of the easiest ways to keep onion leaves green all season long. Let's get started. The first question: is yellowing actually a problem? Before reaching for fertilizer or spraying anything, ask yourself one simple question. How old are your onions? If your onions are close to harvest, yellowing may be completely natural. As onion bulbs mature, the plant slowly redirects energy from the leaves into the bulb underground. Eventually the tops begin to soften, turn yellow, and fall over. This is exactly what should happen when the bulbs are reaching maturity. If nearly every plant in the bed is yellowing at the same time and the bulbs are already large, congratulations, your onions are simply finishing their life cycle. However, if your onions are still young or only a few random plants are turning yellow, that's a sign something else is happening. The earlier you identify the cause, the easier it usually is to fix. Cause number 1: overwatering. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is assuming onions need constant moisture. While onions do need consistent watering, they absolutely hate sitting in soggy soil. Unlike tomatoes or squash, onions have relatively shallow root systems that require oxygen as much as they require water. When soil stays soaked for too long, oxygen disappears. Roots begin to suffocate, and the leaves quickly respond by turning yellow. Ironically, plants suffering from too much water often look exactly like plants suffering from drought. That's why simply watering more usually makes the problem worse. Signs of overwatering include soft yellow leaves, slow growth, mushy bulbs, wet soil several inches below the surface, a sour smell coming from the soil. If rain has been frequent or you've watered daily, overwatering is very likely the culprit. Here's how to fix it. Stop watering immediately. Allow the top few inches of soil to dry before watering again. If your garden has heavy clay soil, gently loosen the surface between rows to improve airflow. Avoid walking on wet soil because compaction makes drainage even worse. If water regularly pools around your onions, consider building raised beds next season. Even raising the soil by 6 to 8 inches dramatically improves drainage and reduces root problems. Remember, it's far easier to recover from slight underwatering than severe overwatering. Healthy onion roots need both water and air. Cause number 2: underwatering. Now let's look at the opposite problem. Although onions dislike soggy conditions, they also struggle during dry weather. Because their roots stay close to the surface, onions can't reach deep moisture the way corn or tomatoes can. After several hot, windy days, the soil dries quickly. The first sign is often yellow leaf tips. Then entire leaves begin fading. Eventually growth slows dramatically. Small bulbs are almost always linked to inconsistent watering. How can you tell? Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it's completely dry, your onions need water. Instead of watering lightly every day, give the bed a deep soaking once or twice a week, depending on rainfall. Deep watering encourages healthier roots and more even bulb development. Early morning is the best time to water. This gives leaves time to dry before evening, reducing disease problems. Avoid watering late at night whenever possible. Cause number 3, nitrogen deficiency. Sometimes the problem isn't water at all. It's food. Nitrogen is one of the most important nutrients for onions during early growth. It fuels leafy green growth, which later provides energy for building large bulbs. Without enough nitrogen, the oldest leaves usually begin turning pale green before becoming yellow. Growth becomes slow. Plants remain thin. Bulbs stay disappointingly small. Unlike fungal diseases, nitrogen deficiency usually affects many plants evenly across the bed rather than just a few isolated onions. The fastest fix. Apply a nitrogen-rich fertilizer according to the product label. Many gardeners also use composted manure, blood meal, fish emulsion, or other organic nitrogen sources. After feeding, water thoroughly so nutrients reach the root zone. Within 1 to 2 weeks, new leaves often emerge noticeably greener. Keep in mind that nitrogen should mainly be applied early in the growing season. Once bulbs begin enlarging significantly, excessive nitrogen encourages leaf growth instead of bulb development. Timing matters just as much as the fertilizer itself. Cause number 4, nutrient imbalance. Not every yellow leaf means your onions need more fertilizer. Sometimes they've already received too much. Excess fertilizer can damage roots, interfere with nutrient uptake, and even burn plants. Too much nitrogen may create lush green tops at first, but weak bulbs later. Too much potassium or phosphorus can block other nutrients from being absorbed properly. This is why experienced gardeners rarely fertilize on a fixed schedule. Instead, they observe how the plants are growing. Healthy onions should produce upright green leaves with steady, consistent growth. If you've already fertilized several times and yellowing continues, adding more fertilizer may not solve the issue. Instead, focus on improving soil health with organic matter and balanced nutrition. Healthy soil almost always produces healthier onions. Now that we've covered watering and nutrition, it's time to look at the problems that often catch gardeners by surprise. You may be watering correctly and fertilizing at the right time, yet your onion leaves are still turning yellow. If that's the case, it's time to inspect your plants a little more closely. Many pests and diseases begin with subtle symptoms that are easy to miss. But if you catch them early, you can often stop the damage before it spreads throughout your entire onion bed. Let's start with one of the smallest but most destructive onion pests. Cause number 5, onion thrips. If you've never seen onion thrips before, don't worry, they're incredibly tiny. Most are only about 1 to 2 millimeters long, making them difficult to spot without careful inspection. Instead of chewing holes in leaves, thrips scrape the surface and suck out plant juices. This leaves behind silvery streaks, tiny white spots, and eventually yellow, dry foliage. As the infestation grows, leaves begin curling, drying out from the tips, and turning yellow. Bulb growth slows dramatically because the damaged leaves can no longer produce enough energy through photosynthesis. How to check for thrips. Look deep between the onion leaves near the base of the plant. If you gently separate the leaves, you may notice tiny, slender insects moving quickly. Another sign is black specks of insect waste on the leaves alongside the silvery patches. How to fix it? Start by spraying plants with a strong stream of water. This removes many of the insects immediately. For larger infestations, insecticidal soap or neem oil can be very effective when applied thoroughly, especially inside the folds where thrips hide. Spray early in the morning or late in the evening to avoid leaf burn and to protect beneficial insects. Repeat applications every 5 to 7 days if necessary, since new insects may hatch after the first treatment. Keeping weeds under control around your onions also reduces places where thrips can reproduce. Cause number 6, fungal diseases. Fungal infections are another common reason onion leaves suddenly begin turning yellow. Unlike nutrient deficiencies, fungal diseases often spread unevenly, affecting individual plants first before moving across the bed. Some common onion diseases include downy mildew, purple blotch, and leaf blight. Each disease looks slightly different, but they share several warning signs. You may notice yellow patches appearing randomly on leaves, brown or purple spots, gray or fuzzy growth during cool, damp weather, leaves collapsing long before harvest. These diseases thrive when leaves stay wet for long periods. That's why overhead watering in the evening creates ideal conditions for fungal spores. What should you do? Remove heavily infected leaves or entire plants if necessary. Never place diseased foliage into your compost pile unless your compost reaches temperatures high enough to destroy pathogens. Improve airflow by avoiding overcrowded planting. Water only at soil level whenever possible. If fungal diseases become severe, labeled fungicides approved for onions may help slow their spread, but prevention is always far more effective than treatment. Cause number 7, root rot. Sometimes the real problem is hidden underground. Root rot develops when roots remain in wet soil for too long. At first, the leaves begin turning pale green. Soon afterward, they become yellow and wilt, even though the soil appears moist. Many gardeners mistakenly add even more water, which only accelerates the damage. If you carefully pull up one affected onion, healthy roots should appear white and firm. Rotting roots are usually brown, black, soft, or have an unpleasant odor. The bulb itself may also feel mushy. Unfortunately, badly infected plants usually cannot be saved. However, removing them quickly can reduce the spread of certain soil-borne diseases. To prevent root rot in the future, improve drainage. Avoid overwatering. Rotate crops every year. Never plant onions repeatedly in exactly the same location. Healthy soil drainage remains one of the most powerful defenses against root diseases. Cause number 8, compacted soil. Healthy roots need loose soil to grow. Unfortunately, many gardens develop compacted soil over time from heavy rain, repeated foot traffic, or working the soil when it's wet. Compacted soil limits oxygen, slows root development, and reduces water movement. Even if nutrients are available, roots may struggle to absorb them. The result? Yellow leaves. Poor growth. Small bulbs. How can you tell? Push a garden trowel into the soil. If it's unusually difficult to penetrate just a few inches, compaction may be part of the problem. The solution? Avoid walking between onion rows. Add compost every season to improve soil structure. If possible, loosen soil before planting rather than after roots have developed. Raised beds also reduce long-term compaction because gardeners don't step directly on the growing area. Cause number 9, soil pH problems. Here's something many home gardeners never test. Soil pH. Even when fertilizer is present, onions cannot efficiently absorb nutrients if the soil is too acidic or too alkaline. Most onions grow best in soil with a pH between 6.0 and 7.0. Outside that range, nutrient availability decreases. The symptoms often resemble fertilizer deficiency. Leaves gradually become pale. Growth slows. Yellowing appears despite regular feeding. The best solution? Use an inexpensive soil test kit or send a soil sample to your local extension service. If the soil is too acidic, agricultural lime may gradually raise the pH. If it's too alkaline, adding organic matter or sulfur where appropriate and according to soil test recommendations can help lower it over time. Testing your soil removes the guesswork and often saves money on unnecessary fertilizers. Cause number 10, weeds competing for nutrients. Sometimes the onions themselves aren't the problem. The competition around them is. Weeds compete aggressively for water, nutrients, and sunlight. Because onions have relatively shallow root systems, they're poor competitors. Even moderate weed pressure can reduce bulb size while causing leaves to weaken and yellow. The solution is simple but important. Remove weeds regularly while they're still small. Be careful when hoeing because onion roots are close to the soil surface. A light layer of mulch can also suppress weeds while helping maintain consistent soil moisture. Just be sure the mulch isn't piled directly against the onion bulbs. At this point, you've learned how to identify many of the most common reasons onion leaves turn yellow. But what if several of these problems happen at the same time? By now, you've learned the most common reasons onion leaves turn yellow, from watering mistakes and nutrient deficiencies to pests, diseases, and soil problems. But here's something many gardeners don't realize. Sometimes more than one problem is affecting your onions at the same time. For example, heavy rain can weaken the roots, making plants more vulnerable to fungal diseases. Or a lack of nutrients can leave onions stressed and easier for pests like thrips to attack. That's why experienced gardeners never guess. They follow a simple process to identify the real problem before taking action. Let's go through that process together. A simple 5-step diagnosis. Whenever you notice yellow onion leaves, don't immediately grab fertilizer or pesticides. Instead, ask yourself these 5 questions. First, how wet is the soil? Push your finger about 2 inches into the ground. If the soil is muddy or sticky, stop watering. If it's dry and dusty, your onions probably need a deep watering. That one simple check eliminates one of the biggest causes of yellow leaves. Second, look closely at the leaves. Do you see tiny silver streaks? Small white spots? Curled tips? Tiny insects hiding between the leaves? If yes, thrips are probably the culprit. If you notice purple spots, fuzzy gray growth, or irregular lesions, you're more likely dealing with a fungal disease. Third, check several plants, not just one. If nearly every onion looks pale, think about watering or nutrition. If only a handful of plants are affected, pests, diseases, or damaged roots are more likely. Patterns tell a story. Fourth, inspect the bulbs. Carefully pull one unhealthy onion from the soil. Healthy bulbs should feel firm. Roots should be white and fresh. If they're brown, soft, or smell unpleasant, root rot is likely responsible. Finally, consider the weather. Has it rained every day? Have temperatures suddenly climbed above 90 degrees? Was there a hailstorm? Weather often explains sudden changes that seem mysterious at first. Once you've answered these 5 questions, choosing the right solution becomes much easier. Emergency rescue plan. Let's imagine you walk into your garden tomorrow morning and discover your onions turning yellow. What should you do first? Start by staying calm. Most onion problems develop over several days, not overnight. Your first priority is preventing further stress. Remove weeds growing around the onions. They steal water and nutrients when your plants need them most. Next, adjust watering if necessary. Don't water automatically. Always check the soil first. Then inspect every plant. Remove leaves that are badly diseased. If an entire onion has become soft or rotten, pull it out immediately so problems don't spread. If your onions simply appear pale without signs of disease, feed them with a balanced fertilizer or a gentle nitrogen source if they're still in the leafy growth stage. Afterward, continue watching the plants over the next week. Healthy recovery usually begins with fresh green growth emerging from the center of the plant. Even if older leaves stay yellow, new healthy leaves are an excellent sign that your onions are recovering. 5 mistakes that make yellow leaves worse. Unfortunately, many gardeners accidentally increase the damage. Let's avoid the most common mistakes. Mistake number 1: watering every single day. Daily shallow watering keeps the soil constantly wet while encouraging weak, shallow roots. Deep, consistent watering is much healthier. Mistake number 2: adding more fertilizer every time leaves turn yellow. Yellow leaves don't always mean nutrient deficiency. Too much fertilizer can burn roots and create even bigger problems. Always identify the cause before feeding. Mistake number 3: watering late in the evening. Wet leaves overnight create perfect conditions for fungal diseases. Morning watering gives foliage time to dry naturally. Mistake number 4: ignoring the first symptoms. Small yellow tips are much easier to correct than completely collapsed plants. Inspect your onions regularly. A few minutes each week can save an entire harvest. Mistake number 5, planting onions in the same location every year. Many pests and diseases survive in the soil. Rotating crops greatly reduces future problems. Ideally, wait at least 3 years before growing onions or other alliums in the same bed. Again, prevention is always easier than repair. Now let's talk about keeping onion leaves green from planting until harvest. Healthy onions begin with healthy soil. Before planting, mix compost into the bed. Compost improves drainage, supports beneficial microbes, and helps the soil hold just the right amount of moisture. Choose a sunny location. Onions need plenty of direct sunlight to grow strong leaves and large bulbs. Space plants correctly. Crowded onions trap moisture and reduce airflow, increasing disease pressure. Water deeply but only when needed. A layer of mulch can help maintain even soil moisture while reducing weeds. Keep the garden clean. Remove dead leaves and plant debris during the season. At the end of harvest, clear away old onion plants instead of leaving them on the bed. This simple habit helps reduce disease carryover into the following year. Monitor your onions every few days. The earlier you notice changes, the easier they are to fix. Remember, successful gardening isn't about reacting to disasters. It's about catching small problems before they become big ones. Final thoughts. Yellow onion leaves can look alarming, but they don't automatically mean you've lost your crop. In many cases, your onions are simply asking for help. Maybe they need less water. Maybe they need more nutrients. Maybe tiny insects have moved in. Or perhaps they're simply reaching the end of their natural growing cycle. The important thing is not to panic. Observe your plants carefully. Look for patterns. Check the soil. Inspect the leaves. Take action based on evidence rather than guesswork. That's exactly how experienced gardeners consistently harvest healthy, firm, flavorful onions. Year after year. Every season teaches us something new. Even if your onions struggled this year, the lessons you learned will help you grow an even better crop next season. And remember, gardening isn't about perfection. It's about learning, improving, and enjoying the process. If you found this guide helpful, give the video a thumbs up and share it with a fellow gardener who might be struggling with yellow onion leaves. Subscribe to the channel for more practical gardening tips, proven growing techniques, and easy solutions that help you harvest healthier vegetables all season long. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy gardening!